I remember perfectly the first time I felt that a t-shirt made me invincible. It was the mid-2000s, and Under Armour wasn't just clothing, it was a statement of intent. If you wore it, it was because you took training seriously. It was the armor of real athletes, the unofficial uniform of those who gave everything in the gym or on the field. It was aggressive, it was intense, and above all, it was incredibly cool. Today that same brand is the one you see in the clearance section of a department store, the one your uncle wears to mow the lawn. What the hell happened? How did a brand that was once worth $20 billion, that humiliated Adidas and had Nike looking over its shoulder, lose its soul? The fall was no accident. It was a death by 1,000 self-inflicted cuts. In 2016, the company was on top of the world, with revenues close to $5 billion and growth that seemed unstoppable. Just a few years later, its stock had plummeted by more than 80%. CEOs were coming and going through a revolving door, and the brand had become irrelevant. It went from being aspirational to being generic. This is not just the story of a sportswear company. It's an autopsy of how ego, strategic blindness, and panic can destroy an empire. And to understand it, we have to break down the 5 fatal mistakes that took Under Armour from being the hunter to becoming the prey. It all began in the purest way possible. In the late 90s, Kevin Plank, a college football player, was fed up with his cotton shirts getting soaked with sweat, heavy and uncomfortable under his gear. So, from his grandmother's basement, he created a solution. A synthetic compression shirt that wicked away sweat and kept athletes dry and light. It was a product born out of a real need. In his first year, he sold $17,000 worth of shirts out of the trunk of his car. Growth was slow but steady, until Hollywood came knocking. Oliver Stone's film, Any Given Sunday, dressed its characters in Under Armour gear. And overnight, sales skyrocketed to nearly $1 million. By 2005, the company went public with a spectacular valuation. Their focus was razor-sharp, to create the best performance apparel for the committed athlete. There were no distractions, but then, at the height of their success, they committed the original sin, an identity crisis. They started to think they were no longer an apparel company but a technology company. In a frenzy of acquisitions, they spent more than $700 million buying fitness apps like MyFitnessPal and Endomondo. The idea was to create a connected digital fitness ecosystem. On paper, it sounded innovative. In practice, it was a disaster. It was as if a neighborhood pizzeria, famous for its secret dough recipe, suddenly decided that its future lay in developing software to manage mozzarella inventories. They diverted their attention, capital, and talent away from what they did best, creating amazing physical products. They forgot that people didn't buy Under Armour for its algorithms, but for how that shirt felt on a scorching hot day. This distraction diluted their message, confused their customers, and even worse, made them take their eyes off the ball while their competitors were getting ready to steal their market. And this internal confusion would soon manifest itself in a PR disaster they couldn't control. While management was dreaming of becoming the next Silicon Valley, the real world gave them a slap in the face. In 2017, the founder and CEO, Kevin Plank, appeared on television and described then-President Donald Trump as a real asset to the country. The backlash was immediate and brutal. The problem wasn't politics itself, but the total disconnect from their customer base and above all from their star athletes. Stephen Curry, the face of their multi-million-dollar sneaker line and their equivalent of Michael Jordan, felt betrayed. Publicly, Curry said he would agree with Plank's description if you remove the "eat" from the word asset. A devastating and direct blow. Suddenly, the brand that represented youthful energy and diversity found itself embroiled in a political controversy that alienated much of its audience. It was the equivalent of being the DJ at an amazing party and right in the middle of the best song, stopping the music to give a very personal and divisive opinion about the economy. You instantly killed the vibe. Nike, on the other hand, played its political cards masterfully with Colin Kaepernick. It was a calculated risk, but one that was perfectly aligned with the brand's identity and its target audience. What happened with Under Armour was an unforced error, a stumble that made them look clumsy and out of touch. The trust of their athletes was shaken, and the public perception of the brand took a hit from which it never fully recovered. But while they were putting out this media fire, a much bigger and quieter one was consuming the foundations of their business model, and they didn't even notice. The next nail in the coffin was their complete blindness. Faced with the retail apocalypse unfolding in the United States, Under Armour had built its empire on a traditional distribution model, relying heavily on large sporting goods chains like Sports Authority and shopping malls. And by the mid-2010s, both of these pillars were crumbling. In 2016, Sports Authority filed for bankruptcy, leaving Under Armour with a hole of more than $150 million and mountains of unsold inventory. At the same time, foot traffic in shopping malls was plummeting. They bet all their money on horses that were about to be put down. It was like tying their brand new yacht to an anchor sinking in quicksand, and then being surprised when water started coming in through the deck. Meanwhile, Nike was executing a brilliant strategy, direct-to-consumer sales, also known as DTC. They were opening their own flagship stores, creating a premium shopping experience and, most importantly, building a direct relationship with their customers through their SNKRS app and website. This gave them complete control over their brand, their prices, and crucially, access to extremely valuable consumer data. Under Armour, on the other hand, was at the mercy of bankrupt retailers, losing control over how their products were presented and having no idea who their end customer was. They were playing checkers while Nike was playing three-dimensional chess. But the biggest mistake wasn't ignoring where people were shopping, but completely ignoring what they actually wanted to buy. And this is where the real brand killer comes into play. Athleisure. Culture had changed. People no longer wanted clothes that were only good for sweating at the gym. They wanted versatile garments they could wear to work out, grab a coffee, work from home, or even go out at night. They wanted technical comfort with a sophisticated style, and a Canadian brand called Lululemon understood this perfectly. They created a movement. Under Armour, with its hyper-masculine, aggressive, and purely performance-focused aesthetic, was left completely behind. Their slogan was, "Protect this house," a battlefield mentality. Lululemon offered yoga, community, and $100 leggings that felt like a second skin. It was as if Under Armour kept selling heavy metal albums when the whole world had switched to lo-fi playlists to relax. While Lululemon became a cultural and financial giant, doubling Under Armour's revenue by 2023, Under Armour kept insisting they were for the focused athlete. The problem is that the very concept of athlete had expanded. Now everyone was an athlete in their own way. They failed to understand that fitness was no longer just about pushing your limits, but about a holistic lifestyle. Their rigidity kept them from evolving. They clung to an identity that the market had already moved past. And when you're facing an identity crisis, a public relations disaster, an obsolete business model, and a market trend you completely ignored, you're left with only one desperate card to play, the most dangerous of all. That card was massive discounting. The kiss of death for any brand that prides itself on being premium. With tons of accumulated inventory and sales in free fall, they made the fatal decision to flood the low-cost market. Their products, once exclusive to specialty stores, began to appear in large quantities at chains like Kohl's, TJ Maxx, and Marshall's. Strategically, it's a panic move. It's as if a Michelin-starred chef, in order to get rid of leftover food, started selling his gourmet dishes at a fast food stand. Even if the product is the same, the context completely devalues it. The perception of exclusivity and quality vanishes instantly. The brand, which had been built on an image of elite status and superior performance, was now associated with sales and deep discounts. For younger consumers, the blow was fatal. Under Armour became the brand their parents wore, the one they found on sale. It lost all its cool factor. Customer acquisition costs skyrocket when your brand no longer has appeal, and customer lifetime value plummets because people only buy from you when you're on sale. It's a vicious cycle that's almost impossible to escape. In just a few years, they destroyed the brand equity that had taken them 2 decades to build. And so, with a fractured identity, a damaged reputation, and a devalued brand perception, we arrive at the current situation. A company struggling to rediscover its purpose, with its founder back at the helm, trying to fix the mess. The story of Under Armour is a brutal lesson in arrogance. It's a reminder that no brand, no matter how powerful, is invincible. They got drunk on success and believed they could be everything to everyone, a clothing brand, a tech company, a political voice. But by trying to do it all, they ended up with nothing. They forgot the simple truth that made them great, making an exceptional product for a specific audience. Now the question is, can they recover? Can Kevin Plank, the man who created it all and also presided over its downfall, be the one to save it? Or is the brand doomed to live forever in the clearance aisle? Speaking of sports giants that lost their way, Under Armour's story echoes what happened to another titan, ESPN. If you want to know how Disney's media empire got into an $11 billion mess for very similar reasons, like ignoring changes in consumption and a toxic internal culture, I'll leave that video right here on the screen. It's another fascinating lesson about how easy it is to fall from the top. See you there.